Now, growth stories, case studies are never enough, right? I mean, ye dil mange more, right? So, to give you all that more, we have another session on growth journey on SAP S/4HANA Public Cloud. And this will be presented by Mr. Phani Arava, CEO of SAP Infotech. The session truly promises to provide real-world example of implementation of S/4HANA Public Cloud in the chemical industry. Mr. Phani, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Phani, and I'm here to talk about one of the early success stories of implementing Grow with SAP or S/4HANA Public Cloud for a chemical company called Chembond Chemicals. I mean, the customer could not make it today, but I'm just taking this as an opportunity to explain what we did there and how they are taking advantage of Grow with SAP. So this would be the agenda from our side. So let me first describe what we are. We are SAP Infotech. We have been partners with SAP for about 20 years now. We are specialized with Grow with SAP or S/4HANA Public Cloud, as you see. We have been doing SAP implementations for a while. Our first SAP project was in 2005. So we have this experience all those years. We mostly focus on the ERP side, not on the other side. But so what we have experience is on business consulting. Whether it is a discrete manufacturing or a process manufacturing, we've been always there, all right? And so our set of industry implementations vary across different manufacturing companies. And right now, at this present point of time, we are focusing on public cloud, okay? So we are a Grow with SAP partner, and which is basically a few partners where we are specialized in Grow. So let me talk about now the actual crux of the presentation. This is for Chembond Chemicals. Chembond Chemicals is established in 1974. So they have been working with different chemical products, mostly water-based chemicals, but they also work on different materials like construction chemicals. They also do industrial cleaning and hygiene. These are mostly water-based chemicals, and they focus on that particular environment. So what they had is they were running already SAP ECC in their landscape, and we went in there to transform this to a cloud landscape. Okay, they had different kinds of problems. Their existing environment, though, was running in a full-fledged scope of manufacturing, quality management. There were little gaps which we had to study and then bring them onto the new platform. Okay. Now, so as I said, right, the main problem was that the scale was on a higher side. We had about 10 companies which were already running on SAP ECC. Group companies basically, all right. They had about 50 plus plants if you combine, in the virtual plants side. They have about 6,000 or 7,000 plus materials with a lot of business partners, both on the customer side and on the vendor side. So taking all these things and with migrating them onto a public cloud. So we signed this contract with them in July, and The actual start of the project was in September 15th, 2022. They went live successfully in April 2023. So it was a 6 months plus kind of exercise for us, where we moved them from existing environment of SAP ECC to public cloud. Okay. Now during this phase, so it was actually, to be honest, it was a surprising thing for us also, because it was initial start for public cloud, and especially for a manufacturing company. We were told that many things might work, might not work. So that was the phase which we went and took this project. All right. Now, so when we actually went into the project, try to understand what is available and whether we can achieve the complete thing. So at that point of time, there was a pure myth, I would say, saying that public cloud is not fit for manufacturing industry, and especially for a chemical industry. That was a kind of myth that was going on at that point of time, and so we had taken that as a challenge and taken this as a challenge and taken this opportunity for us to show our experience here. So the scope side, it was general procurement. Then we had standard sales, but since they were doing a lot of company code, intercompany sales was high. All right. They also had a lot of high C sales. All right. Then standard sell from stock, sell from manufacturing, manufactured product. The standard scope for manufacturing, they were doing planned, unplanned manufacturing. Then from a finance side, they wanted their existing chart of accounts to be pushed into public cloud, which was one of the challenges which we had taken. And we also had standard asset accounting. We had to make some changes so that it fits into public cloud. Then we also had Concur. They were already using Concur, so we had to integrate that. Okay. These are the different kinds of challenges. With event-based costing, they wanted to understand how that works for public cloud scenario. So these are the different things which we have worked out. We can get into discussions during the questions, but the standard scope was there available for us. Now, what we have realized, now this is where the trick, where it gets very tricky. All right. Now, we have seen that, so there is something called fit to standard workshop. Previously, we used to do as is study and to be scenario, but with public cloud coming into picture, it is like more of a fit to standard workshop. So what happens during this fit to standard workshop is very interesting. So we basically go through the whole processes, try to understand whether it fits into the new environment, that is the public cloud. Now, what we have observed is, even with the chemical industry or a manufacturing industry, I said, right, when we started out, it was a lot of myth saying that it might not fit. What we have realized is most of the stuff, like 80% of the stuff actually fits into public cloud. Now, yes, definitely there are some challenges which we had to take forward. So before we go into public cloud, at that point of time, it was a 2SL scenario. That means we didn't have the ABAP instance. All right. So that's something which was also a challenge for us. There was no ABAP. It was purely S/4HANA public cloud with limited customizations. Okay. So we had taken again this as a challenge, and we started understanding what were the different things which were missing. So the focus was, okay, 80% is fit. Now let's focus on the 20% which is not available. Now, the first thing which we have observed was they had a homegrown CRM, all right. So which is what was used to take orders. Now, they naturally wanted that integration with SAP. Now, this was a challenge because, again, as I said, right, few limitations which we had to go through because there was no ABAP engine which we had to take. So we had to take a completely different approach. All right. Now, this is where we have been really successful there. We'll talk about that, what we have taken, what approach we have taken to do this in the next slides. There was, so the second one was this harmful goods label printing. They had this in the previous system and actually wanted that, right? So every chemical company, they need this from a perspective that they have to show this on their labels, so labels on their boxes or on their containers. So they wanted this, so we had to squeeze this in somewhere within our whole deployment. So since we were not allowed to create any customizations with the system, so since there was no ABAP for us, so we had to tackle this problem, all right. Then the third one was their e-invoicing and e-waybill solution. I know there is an SAP solution already for e-invoicing and e-waybill. Standard solution is available, but for few reasons, because of the commercial impact they had, they wanted to, because there were like 10 companies, 11 companies, so they said, okay, Phani, we need this solution, but customized for us, right? So we had to work on this particular aspect of e-invoice and e-waybill solution. And finally, they had some standard reports which they had done previously. Now, this also will need to be implemented. Now, we had this different challenges which we had taken from the fit to standard workshop, and we had to start working on each of them, all right. Now, let me go into the challenges. It was a short time for us, 6 months, go live. Then, as I said, right, there were a huge number of company codes which we had to migrate, and each had their own chart of accounts. You can call them, they had customized a few things, especially from the organized structure. So we had to revamp a lot of org structure individually from these company codes. We had to make special sales areas, do a bit of org structure realignment. Quality data. So they had a lot of quality parameters because they were working with about 6,000 finished goods. There are a lot of this quality certificate data. They had a huge volume of data. In fact, the whole data import crashed during the importing of quality data. That huge the data was, all right. So, so we had to work with SAP support, get this going, all right. The kind of data they had. So this was the second thing. The other second challenge which I was already talking about, that we were on a 2SL system. So 2SL system didn't have that ABAP engine, so we could not write custom code even if it was available. So we had to take that. Next, we have finalized that we have to use this BTP framework, again, which everyone was new. We had to try to understand that and close that gap. Then, as I said, right, label application was there, a custom CRM integration was there, so we had taken that. Now, end user custom reports. Now, this is very interesting. So they had some sales reports, sales registers, purchase registers, on-time delivery reports, on-time fulfillment reports. So these were also very crucial for them because they were accustomed to this, right? I mean, we cannot change the mindset from an end user perspective, saying that, no, we cannot do without this, okay? So this kind of discussions were very huge. And now these challenges all together, it was complex, to be honest, from an overall implementation. And since again, this was like a first set of implementations we had to do in India, all right? This was in 2022, so first set of implementations. So we got the necessary support from SAP. We had to learn a few things during our during our journey, and then finally we could achieve something which was really great, all right? So now customizations, let's talk about what the different customizations we were talking about. So they already had an existing SAP ECC, so naturally the outputs had to be mapped the same way. What they were using. Previously they were using smart forms, now it's completely had to be migrated to Adobe Forms. So that was one challenge. Then as I said again, reports, different reports. This was all part of in-app extensibility. Now within public cloud there are two ways of extensibility. One is called, in fact 3 ways now. One is called in-app extensibility. That means as a key user you can go and make these changes, okay? As an admin, within S/4HANA Public, you do not have external services. You can do it within the system. So this is where in-app extensibility came into picture. We had made these customizations. We also created these reports. We had used a lot of CDS views combined with something called query analyzer to create in-app reports. So we are not using external reporting engines. We are using in-app extensibility. We are creating these reports. There is something called embedded SAC also provided part of public cloud. So it is not an external SAC engine, not an external SAP Analytics Cloud, but internal SAC engine, embedded SAC engine. So we are using that also to create certain reports. So some of the reports, I mean just putting some of these reports, not everything, but these were there before, so we had to map them perfectly into public cloud. Now, so in a very simple sense, we could retrieve all the reports which were there previously created into S/4HANA public cloud. Okay, pretty much all the reports which were there running on ECC, we could map them. All right. So this is what we did with the customizations. Now let's talk about extensions. So we talked about the previous applications, right? So we were talking about label printing, then we were talking about e-invoicing, then there was a custom CRM. So we had to find a mechanism to use SAP extensibility architecture, which is also called side-by-side extensibility. We have a third one now with the introduction of 3SL. It's called developer extensibility. We'll talk about that. Probably there's another session going on for another customer where we talk about that. But in simple nature, we talk about this as the architecture for most of our BTP applications or BTP extensions, you can call them. So what we do is we keep S/4HANA Cloud as clean as possible. I mean, technically we didn't have any other approach. We cannot make any modifications with the system, but we use BTP mechanism to create the necessary logics. So for example, let's say I want to create, again, we'll come back to that problem of label printing, right? So label printing is a very simple exercise in the previous world, where you just had to take the material document and automatically create a label out of it. So now what I have to do is, instead of directly calling the table of material document, I will call the API of material document and get the details from there and then pass it on to Adobe. Okay. So this is how the architecture changes completely, and everything is driven through APIs. Okay. It is no more accessing the underlying tables, but more focused on calling the APIs, getting the data, manipulating it, or sending it to an Adobe or something like that. Okay. So this is how the system works. Now there might be a case where you might want to have a local database also. That means in case I want to store certain data, not in SAP, but let's say in a hybrid place, I want to store some data in SAP, some data in a local database. I can use either a PostgreSQL or a HANA Cloud, and this is part of the BTP, architecture what we are doing. Now, so this is some screenshots of our label printing. On the top, you can see the label. All right. So what we do is we get all the material documents. We select the documents, we set the net weight and tear weight. These are dynamically, we can input them, and you just say print confirm. You can also have multiple templates of these labels. In fact, they had multiple. In fact, they have about 20 or something like that labels, where we can select the labels and then it will print the label there. All right, on top. So this is one application which we again created completely BTP, and you can see this is a Fiori based screen. All right. So this is one advantage. I mean the UX is compatible with your existing SAP applications. All right. So this is one extensions we have created. Similarly, this is our e-invoice application. This is like alternate to what DRC is there. So what we do is we select the billing document and we get the IRN once we submit it. All right. It is as simple as that. But internally a lot of things happen. But also we have done one small additional thing for Chembond is we also had multiple copies. So for example, most of this chemical industry or any industry, manufacturing industry, they ask for 4 copies. All right. The standard product again didn't have that. So we had done a small hack where we created multiple copies of the same invoice. Okay. So this is also something which they use very extensively. One more small thing here is we actually directly connect to government. We don't have any GSP in between. Okay, government provides the API. We directly connect to their API instead of passing through any GSP. So that particular functionality also is available here. Now, this is more of a CRM solution which they had. Again, we built this whole thing in BTP, where what we do is we take the data and push it to their SAP, also to push this data to CRM servers they have. And this again, we are using this BTP again. Now, most of the times when people talk about BTP, most of them talk about integration suite, but we have taken a completely different approach. We are using BTP services. We are creating this microservices. We'll talk about how we are creating those microservices, but this is, we are creating those microservices which will talk to external parties instead of using my integration suite. So this is one more thing which we did. Yeah, now how we are doing this clean core approach with BTP, all right. So my slide showed the architecture diagram, but I'll just go one level down where we are actually talking about integrating with BTP. SAP S/4HANA by default provides APIs. There are a lot of APIs that are available, all right. Now we need to understand how to use them properly and develop the solution. So we use APIs, but using APIs is just not fun, right? You understand, correct? It is not fun. I mean, because you have to understand the architecture of that API, you have to go deep into it. So SAP has provided this nice framework called KPM, all right? It's called Cloud Application Programming Model, where you can write code in either Node.js or in Java. Okay, very interesting framework, which is like the central piece of this puzzle, all right? So we use KPM a lot. And what KPM is, basically it creates the backend code. As I said, it can write it in Node.js and Java. But the good part is, it has a nice patch up with Fiori. That means I write the backend code and I just need to connect the Fiori elements with some annotations and you will get the application. Okay. So need not worry about the front end part too much. Just a few annotations, you will get that hit there. Now, as I said previously also, there are a couple of databases you can, if you want to integrate, you can do a integration. You can do it with PostgreSQL or HANA database, depending on the application, right? For certain databases, for certain applications, you require a complete in-memory database and all that stuff. For certain, you don't require. So that's where we use PostgreSQL. Support for remote services. This is very interesting. So the API which you had, all right, I want to view it as a database table instead of an API. Okay. Let's say I have a purchase order API. I don't want to see it as a purchase order API itself, but if I'm using KPM, what happens is this purchase order API looks as if it's a table. I can just query that table or I can insert records into that table. It's very interesting. Okay. It will do the mapping of that API internally. So KPM provides that functionality. Then it can also integrate with event driven. So for example, let's say I have a new purchase order that's created, or a new, I want to inform this to an external target. I can use event mesh, capture the events, send it to outside. Similarly, I can capture events from external applications and I integrate with this thing. So KPM provides that functionality, all right. Then we have integration with Adobe Document Services. I had shown you some examples like the label printing, or you know. Then we have integration with Redis cache, which again is very important. Then integration with job schedule. So on the right side, we as SAP Infotech, we have developed some different kinds of applications, BTP applications. All right. Some of them are, like as I said, invoicing and e-waybill solution, all through BTP, by the way. Digital signature solution, inbound and outbound logistics. These are all different use cases which we have done. And not only for Chembon, we have done it for other customers, so mix and match, okay. So I'm just putting them out. Then outputs for financial invoices, payment vouchers. We have a WhatsApp digital assistant also. Then for chemical industry, we have this harmful goods, which I've already shown you. Then for mill industry, there's a session at 2:30 where Sanyu would be presenting, where we had done a planned order, combined planned order application, which they are using very well. Then we also have a route card application. And for the mining industry, we have a trip track application which we have developed. All these are developed by the same architecture which I have shown you before. That should be it from my side. Any questions? I think I have exceeded my time.
Phani, maybe I can take this offline, but I would like to understand the business case behind migration from ECC to Grow with SAP in this particular case.
In this particular case, it was very simple. They wanted to go to an S4 HANA solution because they had done this implementation a while back in 2008, all right, and they were not able to get a few things, like for example, costing was a crucial aspect for them, which they were not able to achieve in the previous system because it was very complicated. Within S4 HANA, it is much more easier. And similarly, they were missing out a few functionalities and they want to go forward. So that's the reason they went with public cloud. The other question which you might ask is, why did they go with RISE instead of Grow? All right. I think that would be a secondary question. That is more the precise question, right?
Yeah. Especially because I believe that, this is not a small company.
Yes.
This is a sizable company, and the Grow is supposed to be for a smaller company, relatively.
So that's another myth, to be honest. All right, it is not for small companies. It is. So if you that's what I said, right? So there is another session that's going to happen at 2:30 for the steels one. It is actually more complicated, and it's actually a very large company compared to what Chembond is, and they are on Grow. All right. So it's a huge myth. If you understand, Grow is not for large companies alone. It is actually for any company. It's actually, if you understand, Grow is very similar to what RISE was there. Okay. The only aspect with Grow, what we understand is that it is a clean core approach, much better than RISE from that side. The scalability is easy. So we can take it offline, but that's our view at least, okay, from our side. Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, sir. Yes, sir.
You have done your implementation in way back in 22-23. Now, if you are doing it today, what changes you would have made?
Definitely, sir. A very good question, because at that point of time we were not experienced in this, to be honest. Now it is much more easier for us. We know what can be achieved. We are in a much better stage. So if you ask me what changes would we make, for me, the experience what we carry, or as the team we carry, we understand what functionalities, and we can actually implement faster. In fact, our later implementations after that were not taking 6 months. They were like mostly 4 months kind of implementations. Did I answer your question, sir?
Hi, Phani, Sachin here. I saw that you mapped somewhere around 800 plus APIs.
Yes, I mean not mapped, there are available APIs.
Microservices.
No, there are available APIs on api.sap.com. If you go to api.sap.com, on S4 HANA public cloud, there are about 800 plus APIs that are available. Okay. Yeah.
So how many microservices have you configured for this particular?
For this customer, see, for Chembond customer, it is only about 4 microservices. Okay. But the internal APIs are huge. Okay, there would be about 15 or 20 APIs which we are using. All right. Similarly, for my other customers, we are almost using about 40 to 50 APIs. Okay. It depends on customer to customer, right? I mean, this was our first implementation. Few things might have been missed from our side. All right. But as we grow forward, so we have done right now integrations with BTP. I think about, for one customer we are doing where we are almost touching about 40 to 50 APIs.
So any challenges which you faced, managing these microservices, because especially when you go through one cycle of, the SSL certificate renewals, that is where, this kind of, heavy deployment of APIs causes a lot of problem.
I think it's a great question.
From my experience.
Great question, actually very great question. So now, if you actually go inside and understand how SAP BTP works, all right? SAP BTP works very, very nicely at this aspect, okay? So what SAP BTP does is, it abstracts a lot of things. In fact, SAP BTP has deployment framework. That means I can do a DevOps on top of BTP itself, and then I can do the necessary things. For example, let's say there is a changed API, changed API certificate. All right, it actually points me out saying that this certificate is going to expire in the next few days. All right, so which I can manage, not a big deal. Now, the aspect of handling multiple APIs within S4HANA, as I said, the KPM framework provides me a beautiful layer, all right, where I can say this is the APIs which I am going to use. Now, there is one tricky problem. Sometimes what happens is some APIs get deprecated in the next version, all right. That is one part which we are still trying to handle, but yes, most of the APIs which are provided by SAP right now are handling, handling the volumes also. For example, we do a lot of API integrations when it comes to billing documents or sales orders, all those things. So volume wise also we are pretty okay. So previously we used to have a lot of problems like this. For example, network failure or some XYZ, some network failure or OS failure of that particular engine. Now I really need not worry about, because everything is handled by SAP BTP themselves, and that BTP is integrated very seamlessly with S4HANA Public Cloud. And as I said, right, but the KPM part sitting on Cloud Foundry is the crucial aspect for us.
Thank you. Maybe one more question which we can take offline in terms with the deployment of printing multiple invoice copies. Because with Adobe services, I see that's a big challenge.
We'll discuss that about it. Yeah. We'll discuss that offline. That we didn't have a straight API. We had to create that logic within Node.js where we replicate it. But we can discuss that offline. Okay. I think good. If there are no questions. Thank you very much. I think I'm stopping you from lunch. All right, thank you.
They say breaking myths is to breaking barriers, and truly portrayed by Phani with his experience with Chembond, which clearly provided a picture of ease of adoption with SAP S4HANA Public Cloud in the chemical business. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now break for lunch, and let's gather back by 2 p.m. for our next set of power-packed agenda and insightful sessions. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.